Our next speaker is Carlos Camacho, Jr.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Carlos Camacho, Jr., co-founder of the SS United States Preservation Foundation, and I'm a federally recognized consulting party in the ongoing Section 106 review for this reefing project. That role gives me direct access to regulatory agencies and the technical documentation for this federal undertaking. Before addressing the environmental issues related to this project, I first need to correct one procedural matter. The December 9th presentation I'm responding to was entered under the name Ms. Jennifer Adams, although it was delivered by Mr. Alex Fogg, your Natural Resource Chief. That discrepancy affects the accuracy of the public transcript and the crediting of the statements that I'll be addressing today. I want to speak clearly about the environmental and public health risks associated with the SS United States Artificial Reef Project by using EPA-certified laboratory data and federal law. Your Natural Resource Chief described the ship's paint as relatively clean. However, certified EPA method testing from May 2025 does not support that claim. York and Atlantic Laboratories found 4,520 milligrams per kilogram of hexavalent chromium, which is a highly regulated carcinogen found in zinc chromate primer paint used in the vessel's construction. For context, the EPA hazardous waste threshold is 5 milligrams per liter, and the World Health Organization's drinking water guideline is 50 parts per billion. The SS United States exceeds those thresholds by tens of thousands of times. Your Natural Resource Chief also stated that zinc chromate is not federally regulated. However, zinc chromate contains hexavalent chromium, which is listed as a hazardous substance under the Comprehensive Environmental Response Compensation and Liability Act, also known as the Superfund Law. Any release over 10 pounds must be reported to the National Response Center. The SS United States contains an estimated 59,000 pounds of zinc chromate-based coatings, which is by definition a federally regulated carcinogen and that's classified as hazardous waste in quantities that trigger mandatory reporting. Your Natural Resource Chief further claimed that zinc chromate breaks down into chromium-3 in salt water. Marine toxicology does not support that claim. Hexavalent chromium does not readily convert into a harmless form in open oxygen-rich Gulf waters, and it can reoxidize back into toxic form in the presence of sunlight and oxygen. It persists, stays mobile in the water column, settles in sediments, and accumulates in the food chain. Salt water does not neutralize hexavalent chromium. In fact, it's an exposure pathway. Your Natural Resource Chief also stated that the county is following all regulations. However, the Army Corps permit being used for this project requires materials to be clean and free of toxic residues. Hexavalent chromium, lead, and PCBs are toxic residues, and the documented levels associated with this vessel means that it does not meet the environmental criteria found in that permit. The permit being used for this undertaking was written for clean materials and not a 990-foot historic ocean liner coated in hazardous materials. Lastly, your Natural Resource Chief comparison to the USS Oriskany is also inaccurate. As required by the EPA, the Navy spent 4 years and over $20 million on chromium and toxic material remediation before sinking the vessel. The SS United States is larger and carries a greater toxin burden. The county's attempt to complete greater remediation within a 1-year timeline and under a current $13 million budget does not align with the federal precedent set by the Navy. Commissioners, the scientific data and federal thresholds are not in dispute, and the risk to the Gulf waters are not hypothetical. I respectfully urge the board to consider the risk of this undertaking, review the certified evidence, ensure full environmental compliance, and followed by moving forward deployment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, my ears are like all like popped from the North Jersey, so it's like down here. It's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Steve Perry.
Well, all I can say there is it seems like I always follow Mr. Kenny Fuller at his meetings. So I hope I make a better impression on the County Board of Commissioners when I do speak. Again, I'm not a very eloquent speaker. You know that. I'm always nervous when I speak like this, but I do want to bring up a few issues again, specifically about diver safety. But first, I'd like to address the issue we had last week, 2 weeks ago with Ms. Cox about the EPA. I was kind enough to get an EPA summary report prepared by your Coastal Resource Manager that was issued a year ago tomorrow, actually. And what that consists of is 4 different samplings and everything related to PCBs that was done. Ironically, the second sampling was done by a company that I led around the ship, and I specified where all that sampling. So I was invariably involved in that sampling. And that sampling, according to the summary report, the first 5 pages, was sent to the EPA for a review, but nothing else indicates it was shared with the EPA. I'm sure the sampling you guys have done since is in that report that's being compiled now, but there is no report yet completed and everything. So I just want to put that on the record from what was said last time. With that said, I'm going to bring up diver safety again. I know this is a hammer for me and everything, but these issues are important because, again, you're creating a destination off your shores, 20 to 25 miles, where I've been a mariner most of my life. Yes, I work shoreside now, but I've spent a lot of time at sea, days and weeks where you don't even see land, and it is dangerous. 5 miles out to sea, not just 25. So when it is stated that, again, I could be wrong, but you guys don't have a diving destination off that far offshore yet and everything. So this is going to be new. And when it was brought up last time that you're working with a grant for, a hydraulic chamber, but that's still not in it, I'm going to bring up what I've said before. When Walt Disney Company came to Florida and started buying up land, they specifically created Reedy Creek so they wouldn't overburden the taxpayers of Orange County to handle their fire, police, and all that kind of stuff. It's the responsibility, if you're going to create something, not to burden the taxpayers with that responsibility or federal agencies. And again, 25 miles offshore is something that's the preview of the U.S. Coast Guard if there's danger. And then when the danger is there, you've got nothing to help onshore necessarily to handle it. So these are issues that I hope you are addressing and looking at thoroughly. The final thing I'm going to say is related to the ship itself. I'm not here to convince you how important the ship is. I mean, it is the Mount Everest of shipbuilding. And again, I'm going to probably repeat myself. It is the most significant and historically significant ship of the entire 20th century. Now, other people may debate that, but I think if you talk to people who know maritime, they will recognize this is not just any ship. This is something of a spectacular nature. And there's plenty of ships that can be reefed that'll be safer for diving, and I've already given that information to you. I'm still afraid that you're going to create a diving destination that's going to cause you casualty and heartache down the road instead of the financial benefit that you're intending it to create. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. That brings us to our continued and additional public comments. I have 2 cards for public comment. The first is Steve Perry.
Again, I'm going to continue some various subjects, so bear with me if I sort of ramble a little bit. Again, lots of things about the ship, and of course, this is about the ship and everything. Even though on the record you guys said, or Trey, you actually said the only other option we saved the ship was scrapping. That's not true. For 45 years, the ship has been privately owned, and for 55 years, it's been out of service. It's sat around. How would you imagine if this courthouse had sat here for 55 years with no maintenance and no nothing, but nobody wanted to tear it down, but you paid the rent on the land of the property taxes? I mean, this ship has survived and it can continue to survive. There's nothing wrong with that, but there are development plans in place for something. People have been trying this for a long time. They just, ill-sighted on some of this stuff. That's for another date and another time. But the whole time in Philly, the rent was paid in full on time. The only happened here was a rent dispute over, wanting to raise it because someone from Philliport wanted the ship out. Basically, that's it. That's what drove this whole thing. Otherwise, the conservatives would still own the ship. With that said, about the board's meeting of the 9th of December and everything. Back in September, it was talked about, addressing by 3 board members, testing for different stuff and everything like that. 4.5 months and no public, no acknowledgement that you've done any testing. You may have done it quietly. You don't have to share it with us and everything like that in a public format, but has any testing been done about the zinc chromate? Has anything been addressed with that? Relating to the PCBs that I talked about briefly. Yes, the report that was out a year ago tomorrow is a summary report that just identifies stuff. And again, I told you I participated in one of them and did a lot of the sampling and everything like that. But with that, there's many things that it didn't identify, because at that time, the one I was involved in, this entity was going to clear everything up and clean it all up. So I'll give you a brief rundown of things that might not be looked at that you need to consider. And I apologize if I ramble on. electric motors of all kinds, feed pumps, valves of all kinds containing asbestos, plexitelic acid, steering gear rams containing rubber seals, line shaft bearings with rubber seals, chlorinating tanks, feed water, hotel service heating tanks, fuel or heating tanks, low pressure contaminated heat systems, and generators. 8 massive boilers containing refractory asbestos and insulation, as well as other things that goes all the way up from bottom to top. Fan rooms that have things, as I said, all electric motors, service and cargo refrigeration equipment, air compressors, all of these containing rubbers and stuff. They all contain PCBs. I don't know if you're taking them out, but there's a numerous other, and this is just scratching the tip of the iceberg, basically. And again, you have to be an understanding of it. This is completely, this kind of stuff is not found on your small boats you've been sinking as reefs. This is something completely different. And that's the type of stuff I'm thinking you guys need to ask those questions about. With that said, I would like to just say in one follow-up to the commissioner, last time I'm allowed to speak as a public comment. Last time I was criticized by your safety director, and I'm not allowed. I have to direct my comments to you. And I thought that was very inappropriate that someone criticized me for speaking my right as a public citizen on any, as Mixon's always said, you're allowed to speak on any subject for 3 minutes. I question, or I'll ask the board, if I've said anything that's a lie, as I was implied I was lying, please challenge me and point out where I'm telling you something that's false, because that is not true. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Carlos Camacho Jr.
Hello again. I want to address the historic preservation concerns associated with the SSUS United States and correct several procedures issues that directly affect the federal review, including this arising from the December 9th presentation referenced in my earlier comments. During that presentation, Mr. Fogg, your Natural Resource Manager, stated that being on the National Register of Historic Places doesn't provide protections to being scrapped or being sunk as an artificial reef or anything like that unless it was owned by the federal government. That statement is incorrect. Under federal law, National Register eligibility is exactly what triggers Section 106 review. It requires federal agencies to identify adverse effects, consult with stakeholders, and consider alternatives before any reversible action is taken. Your Natural Resource Manager also described major physical alterations to the SSUS United States as if they were routine or already authorized. He referenced cutting large holes throughout the hull and decks and removing smokestacks. He further described preparations for sinking if approval was already guaranteed. These statements don't align with federal requirements. Under Section 106, no irreversible alterations to historic property may occur before consultation is complete. Cutting holes in the hull or the deck and removing character-defining features such as funnels are all adverse effects under 36 CFR 800.5. When these actions occur during active consultation, they raise serious concerns under Section 110K, which prohibits anticipatory demolition undertaken to avoid or predetermine the outcome of federal review. As part of Section 106 process, I have reviewed the federal documentation and the photographic record. Significant structural removals and alterations have already occurred during the SSUS United States during active consultation, including removal of major character-defining features that we spoke about. These things are important because these are not theoretical. They're currently being examined by federal agencies as part of the ongoing review. Any finding or anticipatory demolition can jeopardize federal approvals, delay the project, or require corrective action. If additional alterations occur during active consultation, the county may be held responsible for resulting adverse effects under federal law, including any corrective actions required by reviewing agencies. I want to just also talk about some of the comments that were made in this room by some of the commissioners here. And I want to applaud you because you guys spoke about a lot of good things. Mr. Chairman, you spoke about, the due diligence of making sure that you represent the people and that they're not inheriting problems in the future, including anybody who chairs the commission going forward. Ms. Ketchel, you also spoke about America 250. I mean, you're in a position right now and, where you guys hold value in a historic vessel that literally represents 30% of our nation's 250 years of American maritime heritage. And what you do in this matter right now, whether you review the environmental aspects of things or the historical significant aspects of things, just like our forefathers 250 years ago paved the way for America, you guys stand on the legacy that you're building right now in those chairs. Whatever you put on record here and what you do behind voting, that will be remembered in Okaloosa County. So I urge you guys to, like you guys were talking about, let's have the discussion. Let's have the public format where we can, sit down and talk I had put a agenda item request to have Dr. Todd Osborne's video played. It was a 10-minute video. I did that before traveling all the way here from New Jersey. That's how important this is. And I haven't received a response yet. So at the end of the day, if you guys review that and we have public engagement, I think we could find something that will financially benefit the county while not destroying a historic asset and also leaving a legacy that is going to be tied to America 250. And your legacies will be tied to that as well. But thank you very much for letting me talk. And I open any, if you want to have a conversation, that's great too.
All right. Is there any other member of the public that wishes to address the?
Yes, sir. Can't wait till we sink the SS United States and I potentially get to go dive it or at least fish above it. The next thing is.
I wanted to reiterate runs, and I wanted to applaud the tenacity of our visitors from other parts of the state and country regarding the SSUS, and at the same time, reiterate and underscore our team's ability and tenacity in exploring all avenues to make sure that this ship is a safe vessel to sink for our citizens and for our visitors alike. And I wanted to underscore also, having worked with the EPA before on similar remediation efforts, that they are extremely competent, and I say that as fondly as possible. They explore these things with such vigor that I have zero question whether or not the SSUS is going to be safe when she is finally sunken for the enjoyment of our citizens and our visitors alike. Thank you so much for coming.